the soul of man, the miracle of science, the brickish mark of mystery of a swamp, all contributing to the tragic transformation of a man into an inhuman thing: greed, power, lust, vanity, conflict, winged demons from hell, all pieces of a single diabolical puzzle combining to form. So, in this episode, we're going to be covering Savage Tales and an issue of Monsters Unleashed. So, in this story, it starts off with Man Thing fighting this crocodile or gator in the swamp, and he's going through a monologue in his head, trying to piece together the fragments of memory and all that kind of stuff that he lost. Because that's what kind of makes Man Thing kind of tragic, is like he doesn't remember the man he was, and he has all these fragmented memories that he doesn't understand or know what to do with. So what this is, it's actually telling the origin of Man Thing. And it's only like 6 pages long because back in the day when Marvel did these different like fantasy and monster magazines, they were like almost like anthology magazines. Each character, each story had like 6 to 8 pages to tell its story. And so in this, in Savage Tales, it's telling the origin of Man Thing. And so where we meet up with Ted, who eventually becomes Man Thing, he's a scientist on the run because he developed this formula that could be converted into a super soldier serum, and he doesn't want it to fall into the wrong hands. So we meet up with him and his girlfriend Ellen. They're held up in this cabin waiting for this government agent named Hamilton to meet him so he can pass it off to him, thinking he'd be putting it in the right hands. So Hamilton's running late. Ted's stressing out, and because he's worried that the people he worked for was going to find him. So he tells Ellen to come on, go with him. He's going to go to the cabin where Hamilton was supposed to be staying. So they arrive there, and there's these two guys waiting for him. Well, little to Ted's surprise, Ellen double crosses him. So she's killed Hamilton supposedly, and these two guys are working for her. So she double crosses Ted. So she tells him that she was only with him because he was going to end up giving her access to something that'll probably make her rich, which is the formula. So the two guys attack Ted. Ted fights them off, and then he gets away in his car. So in a desperate attempt to keep the formula safe, Ted does this selfless act where he drinks the formula. So while it's like interacting with him, he loses control of his car, crashes into the swamp. So in Ted's monologue, he's saying how somehow the swamp water is affecting his body along with the formula, which is mutating him into the Man Thing. So we skip ahead, and so Ellen and her two guys, they're in their car. They get to where Ted's car went off the road into the swamp. And so before they even get out of the car, they're in their headlights is Man Thing. So he attacks the two guys, basically turns them into rag puppets, like he breaks their bones and he drops them. And then he goes over to Ellen and he puts his hand on her face and he burns her face. And he's conflicted with emotions. He just turned into Man Thing. He has no idea what's going on. Now he has no idea who he is. Like he's all in shambles. So he burns her, leaves her alive, but she's going to be scarred. And so he just disappears into the swamp, into the night. And then that's where the story ends. Like I said, these were only 6 to 8 page stories back in the day, and it's just real quick stories. Honestly, it's my kind of storytelling. So that's pretty much the origin of how the scientist Ted turns into Man Thing. So what we're going to do now, we're going to cover basically the sequel and the follow-up to this story, which was published in a magazine called Monsters Unleashed. So here we have Monsters Unleashed. It's a direct sequel pretty much. So we start off, we see Man Thing fighting like these demon bats and like this crocodile dragon thing, and he's fighting them in his swamp. And we think this is actually happening, but come to find out, we've actually time jumped. So we find out that this is all happening in Ellen's head. She's having a nightmare. She's now been put in a hospital. She's wrapped up in bandages. So she wakes up from this nightmare seeing a man thing fighting these creatures. And so now she's been treated by this doctor named Dr. Leonard. He's been like the surgeon that's been working on her face. And, she's screaming. She wakes up from the nightmare. He runs in to find out what's going on. And then she tells him, she's like, I can't stay here. I need to get back to the swamp. There's a lab there. I could probably find something of value. I could probably still, like, benefit from this. She's still very greedy. First, in the first story, she turns on Ted to get the formula out of greed because she wants to get money and stuff like that. And then, even with her being scarred and having to be fixed up by the doctor, she's still very greedy, so she wants to go back to the swamp. And so he agrees to take her. And so they're driving through this small town, and they're in this open Jeep. They don't even have a top, and she's wrapped up in bandages. And this kid's walking with his dad down the street, and he makes a Claude Rains reference. And if you don't know who Claude Rains was, he's the original Invisible Man from 1933. And so he's like pointing at her. He's like, "Look, Dad, she's wrapped up in bandages. She looks like Claude Rains from Invisible Man." So I thought that was a, funny little gag joke. So they're driving through the town, and finally they make it into the swamp, and they get to the lab that she was talking about, and we're assuming this is probably Ted's old lab from when he was making the formula. We don't see that in the first story, but we're just assuming this is where he was doing his research. And so they get there, it's been trashed, it's been all destroyed or whatever. But little do they know, the reason that it's all destroyed is because Man Thing has been there, and he's the one that destroyed it. So they go into the lab, Man Thing's destroyed it, and he's still there. He sees them go into the lab. So Man Thing follows them in the lab. Leonard gets startled, so he pops his rifle to go try to shoot Man Thing. And Man Thing pretty much like backslaps him into a wall, knocks out Leonard. And he goes to do his touch, like he did on Ellen before. He goes to touch her face. And he says his quote where he says, "Whatever knows fear burns at the hand of the man, burns at the touch of the Man Thing." So he's doing that little saying in his head as he goes to touch her, and so she starts unraveling her bandages. And then he stops because he's kind of taken because he doesn't recognize her. Her face has been completely changed um, because of the scars that he had left her from when he touched her previously. So he's like emotionally conflicted because he doesn't know who she is. Like he thinks when they get there from the sound of her voice and everything, oh, this is Elena, she's back, or and or at least his memories of her. He doesn't necessarily know what kind of connection she has. Now remember, Man Thing is now a monster, like a swamp creature who was once a man who now not has his memories, or he has his memories, he just doesn't understand them. So he's confused. He pulls back his touch, and since he's conflicted, he leaves. He just walks away, and so Elena helps Leonard, and she's like, "Come on, let's go. There's nothing here. It's all destroyed." So they're driving back to the town, and this is funny because the same kid that made the Invisible Man reference sees her again, but this time she doesn't have the bandages on. So he runs back and tells his dad, he's like, "Hey, that woman that I saw bandaged up, she came back out of the swamp. Now she has a beautiful face. She don't have the bandages on." And his dad's like in a rocking chair, and he's like cleaning his rifle. He's like, "Yeah, strange things have been happening in the swamp here lately." And I think I might have to do me some hunting. And so it's kind of foreshadowing the fact that now Man Thing is he's going to be hunted. Pretty much. He's going to become like the folklore of the swamp, and the one thing people are going to go out and now they're going to try to hunt down this swamp creature everybody's talking about. So, new problems for Man Thing. So that's the story that took place in Monsters Unleashed. So I like it because it was basically a direct, two different magazines, but this was basically a direct sequel story to the one from Savage Tales, the origin story. So it was almost like a double feature episode today. But I love the Man Thing character. I think he's almost like a tragic character. Well, he is a tragic character, but they're doing a lot more with him now in the comics. But I prefer his older run. So I prefer his older stories, but I just wanted to cover these two because I enjoyed them so much, and the artwork was fantastic. It was almost like that life drawing type art, not necessarily comic book type art. So the artwork was amazing. I enjoyed the storytelling and the short story ratio. I enjoy short stories and I love anthologies. So reading it in this fashion or Man Thing story in this fashion was great for me. I really enjoyed it. And so that being said, that's this episode. I hope you enjoyed it too. I hope you were more interested in Man Thing to check out more. And if you like this, please like and subscribe. And until next time, I'll talk to you later.